All right. Well, we are often taught to push past discomfort, to ignore pain, or to disconnect from our bodies entirely. But what happens when that pain lives in the most intimate part of ourselves? Our pelvis, our sexuality, our sense of safety and pleasure? In this conversation with Haley Bowler-Cooke, bestselling author and founder and CEO of Uplift Lifestyle Inc., we'll explore how trauma shows up in the body, what it means to rebuild trust with ourselves, and how healing can move us from shame and fear towards safety, pleasure, and self-compassion. So, welcome, Haley. It's a real pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for being here. And I'm really excited to explore this topic because there are so many people struggling with this. And I know you're the expert, and so we're going to dive in and start off with, just tell us about how you become an expert at dealing with this, with those struggling with intimacy, and I'll let you take it from here.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And I just want to honor you in the work you're doing and making this type of support accessible and available because it's so important. And although for people like us who have been doing this for a while and we're in that realm and we're in that world, it's so second nature for us to talk about intimacy, to talk about pain, to talk about pleasure, to talk about those sort of deep taboo topics. It's really not that usual and not that normal for most people. So I just celebrate you and the work you're doing with pelvic health support and yeah, making this accessible. So
Thank
I
you.
went, no problem. I went to school for clinical kinesiology. So my background was all in the human body. So I did a clinical degree in that. I had multiple placements where I was working with physiotherapists, working with chiropractors, working in gym and studio settings. So I was really comfortable. It was very common for me to be working with women and focusing on the body, like lots of talks about the body,
Mhm.
form, function. I was then really blessed to be placed in a pelvic physiotherapy clinic when I was in my fourth year. Actually, I guess I was in my third year at the time, going into my fourth year. And it was a really unique opportunity because a lot of students weren't getting access to that type of placement because of how intimate and because of how private and vulnerable it can be. But I was identified as, very emotionally intelligent, able to handle that. I was also at the time working in a pre and postnatal fitness studio. So I was very used to, talking to women about their pelvic floors and their bodies and more of these like intimate regions, right?
Mhm.
So I did that for a while and it was probably the gateway to what I do now. I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was going to be like a physiotherapist or maybe a chiropractor, maybe a doctor. I was very much on that like science, that route, very much human body focused. I wasn't so much tapped into the energetics, the spirituality, the emotional intuition. I wasn't so much tapped into that consciously at the time, but it was definitely like a gateway. Pelvic floor physio for me was a really interesting gateway because I started to understand just how common the things that women often don't talk about with your friend, like at a friend group or at a dinner or something, now more so, but at the time, like, didn't seem like it was anything anyone was really talking about. But when I would see patient after patient after patient, my preceptor was doing the work, but I was, taking charting and right there, like literally right there for everything, the internals, all of it. Like I was right there learning. And I really realized that it was basically like 50% of women had experienced trauma. And that's just also who's saying that out loud, right? Maybe it's their first time meeting the practitioner and maybe it takes like five times before they can even open up to that. But like based on their first appointment, 50% of women are explaining that they have had some sort of sexual trauma. They have some sort of pain or constriction or tightening or fear within that zone of their body. And it was like, whoa, like this is a lot of people. Like that's intense. Like this is a problem. So
Mhm.
that was really brought to my awareness. And I shortly after I graduated, at the time I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be a pelvic floor physiotherapist. That's not for me. But I'm really interested in supporting women. And shortly after that, I launched my podcast, and it was all mindfulness, mindset, breath work. I had done a really unique series actually with my preceptor, the pelvic physiotherapist at the time, and it was all about all about the pelvic floor. There was breathwork patterns we would do. We would have conversations, and we were just similar to what you're doing, making that conversation normal, really supporting people. People weren't necessarily coming to listen to Uplift Lifestyle Podcast for pelvic health support, but they were listening to it to self-develop or improve their quality of life, to become more connected to life, more happy, more joy, more freedom, etc. And funny enough, still to this day, the statistics and the analytics on those pelvic health episodes are like my most listened to episodes. And they're really old now. They were like 6 years ago, right? So I still find that kind of fascinating. And it really demonstrates just how necessary the conversation is about sexual health, intimacy, pleasure, body. So
Mhm.
fast forward, I really dive into the energy work, the breath work, somatic experiencing work that I do to this day, that I've supported thousands of women with over the last 5 years in retreat settings, in one-on-one settings, and in group programming. I've been really connected to and almost just like I didn't even necessarily try to like pave the way of this is what I do. It just sort of happened that this is what I do. And a huge part of it is pleasure. A huge part of it is connecting women and people to tracking their pleasure. What feels good? What do they enjoy? What do they want more of in their life? And for those who have read my book, we have a chapter called The Art of Receiving. And I also had this constant ongoing retreat called the Art of Receiving Retreat that has served hundreds of people. And there's this phrase that I say in the book and I say at the retreat, and it's thank you more, please. And it's this energy of like, oh, thank you and more. And as women, that's really our nature to be open, to be receptive, to be in that allowing state, to be open to pleasure. And it's not just sexually, it's like, I've got these flowers near me because this brings me pleasure, just having these sunflowers near. Thank you more, please, is sort of that energy of like, I'm safe, I'm regulated, and I'm ready for more of what feels good. And I'm here for that. When you can focus on pleasure, more pleasure shows up,
Mhm.
right? If you focus on the struggle, more struggle is going to show up. Did you have a question?
Well, I just wondered, how many women would you say struggle with even recognizing that they've had trauma in their lives?
My community, they're all aware of their trauma.
Okay.
That's what led them to support. If I'm thinking of, the general population,
Mhm.
I'd still say we're probably under 50% of women who could, really sit with themselves and go deep into reflection of their story. And a lot of people, the general population, is living out someone else's story. They're living out a conditioned, programmed life.
Mhm.
And there's not really a lot of time for, in North America specifically, there's not a lot of time created for self-awareness, created for self-reflection, created for, you are the main character of your life. Like take a moment, look back. What has the last year been for you? What has the last 5 years been for you? What's the last 10 years been for you? That's not in our system. It's something we have to choose. It's something we have to create. And that's what I'm doing. That's what you're doing. That's what we're doing in this community. I think the person watching this right now is probably aware that they have had trauma. That's why they're here. They're probably aware on some conscious or deeply subconscious level that trauma has occurred. And I'm big on it doesn't define you. Rewrite your story and don't bypass it. Like go there, look at it. And the more you do get talking and the more you do normalize the conversation of, has something like this happened to you? Yeah, okay. Well, how did that feel in your body and what happened after that? Like, how did your body respond to intimacy after that? How did your body respond to even just receiving a hug after that? You can start to identify if you're constricting and closing out of protection, or
Mhm.
if your body's like, I'm good. And if you're listening to this and you're going, oh, I'm definitely not like, yeah, I'm good. there's some healing for you to do, and I invite you into that. And the to take you there right now, it would just be this simple creation of space and creation of safety in this moment. Again, even if you only have 30 seconds, just, you know, drop in. How am I in this moment? I'm anxious. Okay, that's okay. Let's stay with ourselves. Let's be here. Where's this anxiety from? Where's this fear from? Where's this pain from? Whatever it is, and just give yourself the space. And this doesn't require hundreds of dollars in therapy. This could just be 30 seconds. Sitting out in the sun, sitting in your car, just a drop in. Like, if you can do this and it becomes this regular thing you do, just drop in with yourself. How am I doing? What do I need? And then I'm going to give it to myself. You rebuild confidence of trust. You rebuild safety. And pleasure is, it's like an optimized state of being. Pleasure is a state that it's not something we can necessarily access from fear or from dysregulation. So if our nervous system is dysregulated, if our physiology is charged and we aren't safe, it's quite the leap to feel pleasure,
Mhm.
right? So I'm often supporting people in going from fear, lack, scarcity, pain, any, let's say, like not good feeling emotion for lack of the vastness of what that could be. Anything that doesn't feel like, oh my God, this is so good, transmuting that, taking you from there to safety, to enoughness, to this field and this frequency and this being of like, I actually am okay. I'm here. I've got me. I'm safe in this moment. And when you can really anchor that, and this is not something to rush, but when you can really anchor into safety,
Mhm.
then the nervous system regulates. Then the sympathetic nervous system turns down, parasympathetic turns up, vagus nerve turns on. All of a sudden, the heart rate's down, the pressure's down. We're starting to really, oh, I can actually breathe. I'm me again. I'm me. And that dissociation that's often happening for people who have experienced trauma, constant bypassing, constant dissociation. And again, I'm speaking to who's listening to this because you wouldn't be here if you weren't aware of your trauma, but maybe you haven't fully gone there and leaned into the healing work, but instead you've been bypassing for very real reasons like I've got kids, I've got to move on, or I've got this career, I have to move on, or I've got responsibility, like there's no time for me to go there. But so that's bypassing, right? That's escaping. And we're never going to access pleasure and the field of like, oh, it feels so good to be me. It feels so good to be me. We're never going to feel that when we're bypassing because we're always going to be in what I call in between land. And that in between land is escaping the pain. So it is a technique to, remedy the pain, but it's not quite the field of I'm enough. I'm safe. I'm okay. I matter. I matter. I deserve to feel better. So instead of bypassing and being in between land, I like to bring people from the pain or the trauma or the overwhelm of whatever their scenario is into a regulated state. And this is something we see all the time. We even see this in like a hospital setting, in an emerge setting, right? It's taking someone from shock into, let's get their vitals down, let's get their let's get their system regulated. From a regulated state, optimization, which pleasure is an optimized state. It is a high frequency state to be in of like, oh, it feels so good to be me. And we can't necessarily leap there. We have to actually be in that field of safety. And we can access that through breath work. We can access that through giving yourself the gift of space and time. And again, I'm not saying go clear your weekend and go book a retreat. Just on your commute, habit stack. You go pee 10 times a day. Every time you pee, check in. For me, every time I go pee, I will literally sit there. I will massage my breasts. I will massage my heart. I'll massage my throat and I'll be like, I'm good. Or sometimes it's like, whoa, I need a minute. Sometimes it's like, I'm amazing, you know? But it's that moment of like the habit stacking of like, okay, I have time. You have time. You're watching this. You have time. You created this time. How can you create the time to drop in with yourself and check in with yourself regularly? How am I doing and what do I need? And usually for high achieving busy women, it's like, I need to go drink water. I need to go to the bathroom. I need to go step outside. I need to shake off this energy that's not even mine. I need to take a moment alone, even if that's just closing the door to your room and just, I matter, I matter, I matter. Back to me, back to me, back to me. The dissociation and the escapism and the abandonment of self is often the path of someone who has experienced trauma. And whether you've experienced physical trauma, emotional trauma, doesn't matter. You're going to go to the escapism of abandoning what's really going on there, which is I really just need to be with myself here. I really need to look at this. I really need to sit with myself here. Does that make sense when I'm saying that, like escapism or like bypassing or abandoning as a very common thing people do?
Yes, and defining trauma I think is super important because I feel like people don't really know how to define trauma. Trauma is loosely used now more so than it ever has been. And I think people need to sort of sit back, look at their lives, and discover or determine at what point did something go wrong? Did something un, you know, healthy happen?
Mm,
Um, and I think that is a good start to
yes,
recognize. And I don't know if trauma is the greatest word. I mean, I find that
I know.
growing up in the 90s, we didn't use trauma the same way that we do now. So it's difficult, I think, and that's why I was asking you, do some people struggle to figure
Mm,
out if they've actually had trauma in their lives? Um, so that's sort of the piece that I'm sort of, to understand and getting into the whole sexual response and um, feeling trauma because it can show up in many parts of the body, right? It can show up in the pelvis and our sexual response or in chronic pain. So, what's something you wish more people understood about that?
I think that the most important thing to understand is exactly what you said of taking a moment to look at your story, look at your life and notice with curiosity. And because to define trauma is there, I don't think it's possible because it's everyone's individual story is different. You could be sitting in your kitchen as a child and your dad could yell about something and that's traumatic for your nervous system. And then you could be someone who's experienced rape or sexual assault and that's described as trauma. So I like to invite people and I would love to invite whoever's watching this to just take a moment and be with yourself, breathe, and just ask, is there any trauma stored in my body that would like to come forward? Ask the intelligence of your body. Is there any pain? Is there any fear? Is there any abandonment of self? Is there any pain or trauma that has occurred that would like to show itself? And the amazing thing when we're actually present and we're actually with ourselves. We don't really have to go looking. Things just come. They'll go, here it is, right on a silver platter. Here is where you get to heal. And I'm always using this language with my clients. I believe we are the creators of our life. I believe we are powerful in our life and we are not victims of our life. It doesn't mean we haven't experienced situations where we were victimized and you did not deserve anything that happened to you that hurt you. You did not deserve it. And You're an adult. You're listening to this now as an adult. You get to reclaim your story. You get to go there. You get to heal. You get to heal the timelines that are coming after you for your children, for their children. We get to rewrite the story and we get to really be with ourselves and reclaim power from it. And there's, depending on, childhood, your career, your life, your relationships, like I don't know one person that hasn't experienced trauma. And I don't even like using the word like micro traumas because it's like, well, if it hurts, it hurts. And if it created a fear, in the loop that comes from that, and the once that catalyst occurs, there's a physiological response. And whether it's, like I said, your dad yelling in the kitchen or being raped,
Mhm.
there's a response that's going to come after that physiologically. There's going to be an emotional, there's going to be an energetic, there's going to be a spiritual, there's going to be multiple, from that catalyst, there's going to be multiple situations that will occur. And if we're constantly bypassing or we're stuffing it, we're never experiencing the joy, the pleasure that we get to have here in life. And I've worked with people who have been raped. I've worked with people who have been assaulted. I've worked with people who have experienced crazy trauma that you can't even think about in your own brain without feeling really disturbed. And they have chosen to rewrite their story. They've chosen, you know what, I matter and I get to reclaim my life. I'm not the victim. I'm creating my life and I deserve to feel good in my life. And often we're not jumping right from trauma to pleasure. Again, it's like we're really getting comfortable in that state of acceptance, in that state of enoughness, in that state of I'm okay and I do deserve to feel better and I do feel peace right now, and then we can play in those higher realms of euphoria and pleasure, and we get to go there oftentimes to start. And usually what I'll suggest for those who have experienced sexual trauma is if you do feel the call of like I'm ready to like reclaim my sexuality, start with yourself. Don't get another dynamic involved. It's not the time to introduce, another player, another person. It's a really beautiful time for you to reclaim the space that is your sovereign, perfect, beautiful body with yourself. And same thing with your emotions. And I would say the same thing to someone who's experienced emotional trauma. It's heal that, be with yourself, and don't introduce a bunch of other dynamics. Like really go there with yourself. You have everything that you need within you to turn toward yourself, ask what you need, and provide it for yourself. Often, if you're someone who's experienced trauma and you haven't healed and integrated it, you will feel like your life is just happening and you're not in it. When you have integrated and healed trauma, it will feel like, oh my gosh, I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm alive. Because the most common, I would say like 90% of those who have experienced trauma, they'll bypass the pain,
Mhm.
right? So they're in that, again, in between land, which prevents and blocks you from feeling alive. And even if you are having a hard or a challenging moment, you're like, I'm alive in this, And it doesn't feel like your life's just passing. I think a lot of humans out, general population out in the world, they're not feeling that aliveness. They don't feel fully turned on in their life
Mhm.
because they have had probably all of these traumas in their life, emotional, mental, energetic, physical, that they haven't integrated. And it's preventing them from feeling free and literally just take a moment to hold yourself and be like, am I with me? Am I with myself? And usually, if you're someone who has had trauma, it's going to take you a few more breaths. It's going to take you, maybe a more intentional touch over the heart of like, I'm here, I matter, I've got you, like, we're here. But it might take a few moments, but eventually it's going to get really quick. For me, it used to take like, I need, 10 minutes to really just like create safety in my body. Like, I'm safe.
Mhm.
I'm okay. That would be like a 10-minute thing that it was hard to do, but I would do it. Now it's a matter of like most of 99% of my day, I'm like la 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 la. And then if something occurs, I'm like, oh, okay. Like Wait a minute, let me drop back in. And it takes just a moment. So it's that practice of dropping in with yourself, asking yourself how you are, and then asking yourself what you need. And then this is the key part. When you get the answer of what you need to go do it. You literally need to do it. If it's you need to push your meeting by 10 minutes, push your meeting by 10 minutes. None of it matters if you're not well. None of it matters if you're not happy. None of it matters if you're not healthy. I like to, just like I like people to track their pleasure, I also like people to track their healing because when we think of quantum physics and we think of the quantum perspective of waves becoming particles and the evidence that shows us that the thoughts, the intentions, the energy becomes matter. When we move into that direction, if we really realize that if we're tracking our healing in our moments of like, ooh, yeah, that felt good, or wow, look how I showed up in that conversation with my mom, with my dad, with my child, like, and we start tracking and going, yes, that happened. I did that. I did that. Or like, oh my gosh, I I went to bed and I gave myself like 10 minutes to just kind of lie there and reflect on my day and breathe. Like that felt good. Or, I confronted the person I was avoiding. That felt good. Or I just decided that the house doesn't need to be perfect and clean. That felt good. Whatever moment it is, start to track that. That's your healing. Track your healing, track what feels good, and don't cling and don't cling to your traumas, but don't escape them either, right? Let's look at it and go, yeah, that was intense, and here's how I'm overcoming that. Here's how I'm healing that. Here's how I'm integrating that. And then track those moments.
Mhm. Mhm.
How's that feel?
Yeah, I'd love to. There's something else I wanted to talk about, and I don't know if we're going to have enough time in this
That's
session,
okay.
but
We can go a little longer. We can go a little.
we can do another. But I wanted to talk a little bit about painful sex
Hmm.
and
Yes.
why women have been told it's normal to have painful sex, but why is this so harmful? Why is it so harmful to hear that?
Mm.
And how can we change that narrative?
I feel this so viscerally because I am someone who had painful sex a lot. And if I look back, I'm all about reflection. I find it the most healing thing to just like look and without judgment and without trying to fix things, just like notice. If I look back on the years, probably like 2 years in my life where I was bracing all the time, even though I was with someone I loved, even though there wasn't, what we would generally call trauma going on. But if I look back at what was going on in my life at that time, I was in a very intensely controlling state. And the reason I was controlling was I had lost trust and I was in fear and I wasn't in trust and my body wasn't safe. My nervous system wasn't regulated. My heart rate wasn't at a great place. Like I was always on. I was tight. My body was intense and I was a perfectionist. I was under eating, I was over exercising, I was controlling everything in my life. How can I be the best at this and the best at that and be this for them and be that for them? I was in such a everyone else but me mindset. And my body was communicating through pain. And it was communicating, you're not open and receptive. You're not in an open and receptive state. So, of course, this sex is painful because you're not even safe in your own body. You can't even breathe without feeling like you're going to have an anxiety attack. Like you're not with yourself. So to jump from that to, oh, now I'm receiving penetrative sex, of course, that's not a healthy leap,
Mhm.
right? So maybe someone listening is resonating with that story. There's also this, there's also this really like harmful to undermine anyone's pain, to undermine anyone's story is extremely harmful. And those who are watching this, they found you and they found the support system. So they are seen, they are heard. But many women have been in traditional systems, hospital systems, school systems, you name it. They're not this space for to hold the infinite capacity of all that we are as women. And often we're being told, that's wrong or that's not true or that's not happening, but we're feeling it, we know it. There's a million and one things that could cause painful sex. But when your focus is again that drop in of what do I need? And then you give it to yourself and you start to redevelop safety within your own being. And then that safety ripples out into your relationships that are close proximity. And then it ripples out into the world. And then you start to really have this new standard of love in your life, this new standard of relating, of dynamics. And everything begins to feel more fluid, more open, more receptive. And then when you are engaging in any sex, whether it's penetrative or not, there's this like openness in your body that makes the experience so much more pleasurable. And that feels like healing in those moments. But the painful sex, there could be a million and one reasons why you might feel that. And if you are feeling that, it's very harmful to bypass it. And it's very harmful to grin and bear it because I'm always saying this to my clients. When you do this, this is what you're communicating. So if you're grinning and bearing it, what you're communicating to yourself is, I don't matter. I don't matter. My pleasure does not matter. My happiness does not matter. My safety does not matter. When you, it's so I always like to bring like from the bedroom into real life. So if you're in the bedroom and you're grinning and bearing it because you want to please your partner or whatever the heck may be going on,
Mhm.
you're communicating, I don't matter. It's the exact same, it just feels more intense because it's physiological and physical, but it's the exact same as your boss being like, hey, you need to stay late and do this, but you're feeling like, my boundaries aren't being respected. If you just go, okay, yep, I'll do that, you're communicating to the world, to yourself, to the world, I don't matter. And when that is getting communicated over and over again, and I think that this is common for a lot of women in these micro and macro experiences of, I don't matter, I don't matter, I don't matter, because everyone else does. What we're communicating is I don't matter, and then we're going to get that reflected back in our reality and in our results. Whether that's with pleasure, whether that's with pain, whether that's with finances, relationships, career, we're going to just keep getting that. So when we can shift into the energy of I do matter, I do matter, I do matter. And I had to do this many times over the weekend, even though it was just like a fun weekend at my cottage. I was hosting a lot of people and I felt those old patterns of, making people pleasing and making sure everyone else is okay coming up. And I noticed myself, it's like these simple physiological things. I was holding in my pee to clean the kitchen so that that looked good for everyone. And then what does everyone need? And I'm over serving and over delivering and all these things that women do. And I was like, hold up, this doesn't feel good. And then I started to get like this old chest tension that to me is like my immediate communicator that I'm out of alignment, that I'm not in flow. And I was like, what I did was I just went up, brought myself somewhere completely quiet at our cottage, and I just took a minute. I was like, I sat on the bed and I was just like, I matter, I matter, I matter, I matter. And I reconnected to that. And then I was breathing easier. And then I was like, okay, well, what do I need? And it's, yeah, I don't need to serve everyone. I don't need to cater. So I'm just going to serve myself. I'm going to serve myself. What do I need? And I'm going to give myself that. And that is enough. And that seemingly simple thing is a profound choice to make. And if you're listening to this and you're going, okay, you're talking about a cottage weekend, I just experienced intense sexual trauma. I want you to know that that communication of I matter, I matter, I matter, no matter what your circumstance is and was and has been, it's that drop in with yourself of like, I matter and what do I need? So if you are someone who's experienced trauma, that's that's very fresh and really intense.
Mhm.
My bet is what you do need is to recreate a sense of safety and sovereignty in your own body. And that looks like not bypassing. In a lot of ways people will bypass, especially women, is body dysmorphia, body hyper hyperfixation, they'll bypass by over exercising or under eating or sometimes overeating. And it's like this escapism, but feeling like they're in control. I like to invite people to, is this fresh, intense trauma? How can we create safety in the body? Safety would simply be this state of like, I'm good, I'm safe, I'm at peace. Okay, what would you be doing when you genuinely feel at peace? Is that sitting down at the lake? Is that wrapping yourself in a blanket and sipping on a tea? What experience of I matter and I'm safe is it for you? And then give yourself that. And then maybe you have, a job or a life that you can't just keep spending all day in it, but maybe there's a few moments of the day where it's like, this is my little moment. I'm going to take this. I matter. What do I need? How can I feel safe? And then you just reestablish that safety and you reestablish that safety. And then the baseline frequency goes from constantly anxious, constantly on guard, constantly protecting, which creates that ripple effect, which ultimately will lead to painful sex and lots of other painful things and illnesses and whatnot, to like, oh, my baseline is I'm taken care of, I'm provided for, I'm safe, I'm held, I can breathe. And then that's your new baseline frequency. And it just can just keep rising. And then eventually the baseline frequency is like, I always have fresh cut flowers. I always take 20 minutes to drink my coffee. I take these long baths, whatever it is. That beauty and that self-care and the goodness in your life just keeps getting better when you prioritize those micro shifts of like, okay, I'm unsafe to safety. Now I'm feeling safe. How can it feel better? I'm feeling better. How can it feel really good? And then you just keep ascending.
What about when would you say it's okay to be angry at your body? And how do we move through that without feeling guilt?
So I feel like every emotion is great. Every emotion is necessary. It wouldn't exist if it wasn't. And I always like to ask my people, my clients, my community, and does it feel good?
Mhm.
Does it feel good to punish yourself? Does it feel good to shame yourself? Does it feel good to judge yourself? Does it feel good to be angry at yourself, at your body? And most people say no. And then I go, okay, well, what would feel better?
Mhm.
And then it's, yeah, this would feel better, but it's not possible for me because I feel this.
Mhm.
Okay, well, let's go there. Like, let's go there. So anger, I love I love anger. It's such a catalyst emotion.
Mhm.
So if you feel anger at your body because maybe it doesn't look the way you want it to look or doesn't feel the way you want it to feel, it's not performing the way you want it to perform or whatever, like whatever projection you would have on your body, if you're feeling that intensely,
Mhm.
I would suggest you ask yourself, well, who feels this? What part of me hates my body?
Mhm.
And then and you'll probably just by asking who and what part, the part of your body, the part of yourself will come forward. Oh, it's this young version of me who was, shamed by my mom for being fat. Oh, it's this my ex-husband used to make me feel like shit, and that's actually whose voice it is. Or maybe it's, I used to be this professional athlete and now I can't even like go on a small jog without hurting or whatever it is. Like you'll just start to go, "Oh, oh," and then that anger softens.
Mhm.
And that softening allows the healing to come forward. And I think it's really important for people to hear this. You can't move from anger to peace. Like you can't go anger peace, right? So a lot of people, let's talk about the body. they're angry because their body doesn't look or feel they want it to look. They want to move from that to I love my body and my body looks and feels the way I want it to look. That jump isn't possible when you're in anger, judgment, whatever, because based on the holographic rules, universal laws, based on quantum physics, that creates more of that.
Mhm.
I'm angry at myself. I hate myself. I get more of that to hate. I get more results that I don't like, whether that's my body keeps hurting, or I keep gaining weight, or I keep losing weight, or whatever the thing we're avoiding is. So, the middle ground, which is this realm of acceptance and enoughness, and I see this a lot with clients who want to lose weight. It's like they're resisting their body and they're angry and they're frustrated. And then I'm going to go do this workout and I'm going to go eat these things or not eat these things. And I'm going to try to fix it by forcing. They never get the results that they want, which is to look and feel great in their body.
Mhm.
It's when we can move, and I see this time and time again, and that's why I'm always suggesting like more gentle things.
Mhm.
As someone who had what would be diagnosed anorexia athletica back in the day,
Mhm.
I can tell you forcing your way to create an outcome is not going to work. It just doesn't work. So it's like a lot of women want to go from there to this, and they're bypassing this middle field, which is I accept myself as I am. I love myself as I am, or I'm learning to love myself as I am. And again, that middle space is only available from acknowledging that anger, right? So that's why it's, well, who's angry? Who's judging me? Because the inner child isn't judging me. The the loving part of me isn't judging me. The divinity that I am isn't judging me. The part of me that's like, we are all loved here isn't judging me. It's this wounded part of me. So I can't keep feeding this wounded part of me. I must find out who is the judgment person, bring awareness there, and then it softens, and then it's, you know what? I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. My body, and I always, when it comes to body stuff, if you're angry at your body, it's how can you start to feel gratitude and acceptance and appreciation? So maybe it's like, I can see, like my eyes work. I can smell, my nose works. I can breathe, my body's breathing. I'm digesting. Like there's form and function that's going on in your body that is a gift. And if we can start there by like, yes, that gets us into the field of enoughness. And I speak a lot about the field of enoughness. It's like when you're in this field of enoughness, overflow is available. Whatever that overflow is for you. Maybe it's the dream body. Maybe it's the healthy, beautiful relationship. Maybe it's the financial abundance. Maybe it's the beautiful, intimate sexual relationship. That overflow is all available from the field of enoughness.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it will help you, but you have to practice, like you have to keep coming back to it. Like it's like everything. It's like you can keep coming back to this.
It's like doing physio. Like
Exactly.
you got to do the exercises if you want to heal.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah. Keep coming
it's
back and
it's
back and
a mental physio, I would call it.
yes. Yes.
So, Haley, this has been amazing. So helpful. I learned so much, and I think everyone is going to really benefit from this. So, thank you for your time. And I'll leave all your information in the comment section so that if people would like to get in touch, they can and
Amazing.
learn more about your retreats and your book and everything that you do and all the wonderful things you do because you do so many wonderful things. So, thank you again. And I can't wait to have our next conversation.
Thank you. I can't wait. Thanks, Marnie.